2 years later, sold the property, tax-free, moved to an investment property we had 1031 into.
Was there ever talk of divorce?
What's that?
I said, was there ever talk of divorce? I'm just wondering.
No, but she would
around. That's tough, man.
When she got too frustrated, she'd pick up a hammer.
Hello, everybody. It's Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Props Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, chef, father, six, and best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Geno Barbo. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, I think I'm doing better than you right now. I ain't digging any retention ponds. Out in Florida, the weather's beautiful down here. Going to the beach a little later.
We had flash floods last night, and I'm kicking down doors, man. Still making it happen. So today's guest is Dave Foster. He is the founder and CEO of the 1031 Investor. Dave is an accountant and serial real estate investor who is qualified intermediary and consultant for tax saving strategies such as 1031 exchange and Section 121 homestead exemption. Interested to hear more about that today. Dave left Denver, Colorado for sunny Tampa, Florida. He wanted to be neighbors with the G-Dad so that he, his wife, and their 4 boys could live on a boat. So without further ado, Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be here with you guys today. Yeah, I don't know about you, but hey, Gino, let's walk out after this podcast and we'll look around and see if we can find a cloud.
The weather here has been amazing. 90s, hot. I came off the beach this morning with my daughter, and she didn't want to go for a walk. I'm like, Veronica, come on. And by the time she was back, she's like, Dad, thanks for taking me for the walk.
It's always worth it once you get them outdoors.
Yeah, it is awesome.
So yeah, go ahead. I want to find out a little bit more about the serial real estate investor before we get this thing kicked off, because I guess Gino and I would consider ourselves serial real estate investors, but I want to understand your why, Dave, and why you are a serial real estate investor.
Because it's one step better than being a serial killer, I guess.
It might drive you to that sometimes.
I think so. I started my real estate investing way back in the 90s. And it's been one of those things where it's how I'm wired. I love to put deals together. And I got a feeling that's exactly where you guys live as well. So no sooner do you get a deal put together than what? You're looking for the next one, because the juice really isn't even in the dollars you make or that. The juice is in, can you put it together so that it works for everybody? So it becomes like one big huge game of risk or a clue. The difference is you're playing for real dollars. And I just got addicted. You know what it's like.
So Dave, it's funny
Deal
you say
junkie.
that. Yeah. All of our listeners that are listening to the podcast are just like Dave Foster, Jake, and Gino. Everyone else out there, they just don't understand the real estate world. They don't understand that Dave Foster, Jake, and Gino all have ADD. And the ADD is we're looking for the next deal. And it's not even about making the money. It's about getting better at our skill, creating value, and enjoying it. And I know that everyone listening to the podcast right now can totally resonate and totally relate to that. And we just picked multifamily as that vehicle. People out there are doing single family homes, self-storage. What vehicle do you like? I mean, do you have a selected vehicle, whether it's crypto, whatever? What do you like to invest in? I'm
even one step worse than you. I started as just like everybody does. I was almost an accidental investor in single family. But that became multifamily, which became commercial, which became vacation rental, which became raw land development, which became sets for Hollywood movies. And it's even more than just like staying in it. It's like, what's new? What can I try? So
you did say sets for Hollywood movies, right?
I actually did a house that became a set for a Hollywood movie.
Got it. Just clarifying that.
Dude, it's funny how you say that. We same wavelength. I was like, dude, I'm the one with the 6 kids, so maybe I could use that set, but that's for another story. Dave, how did you get into 1031s then? I mean, how did that transition into it?
That was a very fortunate accident from a bad event. My very first property, my wife and I were both on the corporate train, and in the 90s, and we're saying, okay, we're not going to like this forever. We want to have children. We want to go live on a boat. We want to do some stuff. So what can we do together? Well, real estate. That's the answer. So I bought a first flip, fixed up a duplex in Denver, sold it, felt all fat and sassy, right? And then my accountant pops a bubble and says, well, guess what you're going to pay in tax? I went, holy crap. I did not know that I had a silent partner named Uncle Sam who was going to do better than I was. And it's like, so I was just moping around saying, well, this isn't going to work. And right at that moment in time, 1996, there was a huge case law that got all settled out over this thing called the 1031 exchange. And the way the case law set out, it was now going to be available to normal real estate investors.
Mm-hmm.
And some of my best friends, just like, you know how best friends are, right, guys? They're the ones that can mock you to death
Mm-hmm.
and then put an arm around you and take you forward. So they said, Dave, look what you're going to have to do. Why don't you come join us? Because we're going to start a company providing these. And so that was how I got my start, was because I had to pay a big bite of a tax bill. Haven't looked back since, and have not paid a penny in capital gains tax on real estate since.
So you're moving away from pain in the beginning, right? You're moving away from that pain, and now you're moving towards the pleasure. What was the aha moment once you did that? I mean, how did you start that business? Like getting into 1031s, did you have to, was there a learning curve getting into them? I mean, how did that look?
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, I had incredible people around me, because early in those days, since 1920, really, the only people that really understood 1031 exchanges were either attorneys or those that hired those attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very dark art that was practiced. When that law changed, we were able to assemble this team, and you kind of learn as you go, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you commit and then you figure it out, right? And Jake, as I always like to say, done is better than perfect.
And guess who my best guinea pig was?
You?
Of course.
No better way.
So let's talk a little bit about the 1031. I mean, what are the benefits of 1031? I want to walk through the whole process, but let's talk about the benefits and then the cons of a 1031.
Yeah, high level benefit. Anytime you sell real estate, you're going to have to pay tax on your profits.
Mm-hmm.
I emphasize the word your because they're yours. But when you do a 1031 exchange, you are able, because of the tax code, to sell a piece of real estate that either has profit built in it or that you've depreciated out.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have a tax hit on. You use the process and buy new investment real estate. And by doing it that way, you get to indefinitely defer paying that tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean indefinitely if you continue to do it right, which means every time you sell a piece of real estate, you actually have the option of keeping that money and using it for your benefit instead of just letting it go to taxes.
And the cons, what are some of the negatives of the 1031?
It's a long game. I had to fight the urge, right? Because I'm that adrenaline junkie. And the 1031 exchange is sort of like that layaway account.
Mm-hmm.
It's the forced savings. It's the keep it. My wife loves to do this, create little accounts everywhere
Mm-hmm.
where I don't know where the money's at. And it sits there so I can't get at it and spend it foolishly, right? So the 1031 is that long game but instead of your forced savings by paying it to the government, the forced savings are building up for you. It acts exactly like an IRA, except it's not in the IRA account,
Mm-hmm.
but it gives you that same benefit. So if you're impatient, if you really just want to flip houses, it's not going to be good for you. But if you've got a long career goal game and plan, and at the end of that game, you'd love to see $600,000 or $700,000 in taxes, earning interest and revenue for you,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just having gone out the door in taxes, that's where the 1031 can really help you.
So, Dave, I would say that would be a positive for Jake and Gino, because everything we've made as far as profits, it's always the long game. In multifamily, especially, whether it's refining money out, holding the deal longer, it's that delayed gratification. If you can delay your gratification now, that's where you're going to make your money. Jake, you want to comment on that? Because I know you're chomping at the bit for that, because that's your mantra.
Yeah, no, it's and I like the way he referred to it as the IRA. It's totally the long game, and I think if you're patient and you're able to put a deal together utilizing this method, it's a total home run. So
So, Dave, can you walk through the method as far as some of the rules, as far as how long you have, as far as 45 days, 180 days to put on the contract? Can you go through that real quick for us?
The dreaded 45. Everybody knows the 45. So, yeah, first of all, it is, and this is where we'll get into the other half, I think, later, the 121.
Mhm.
Section 1031 is only for investment property. The 121 is on your primary residence side. So you're selling investment property that it has been your intent to hold for productive use. That's the long game.
Mhm.
From the day you sell that property, the proceeds have to go into the account of a qualified intermediary. The IRS requires this independent third party that's going to monitor the process. And from that day, you have 45 days to identify your potential replacements. You got a total of 180 days to close, but only 45 to find them. So that's the real critical time path right there. And that scares the bejeebus about everybody. So those, in essence, you've got to purchase at least as much as you sell. So again, speaking to the delayed gratification, it's difficult for you to pull some of that profit out. So if you're wanting to run your real estate where it's like, come on, I just want a little taste, just give me a little taste, keep me excited, this is going to be a tough one for you because you got to leave it in the game. But that's where delayed gratification comes. And then whoever is owning the property that's sold needs to be the taxpayer for the property that's purchased. And that's the high level nutshell right there.
Mhm.
So what we love to utilize the refi method. You know, we'll refi a property and then we'll pull some of that out tax free. When do you decide to utilize a 1031, sell a property, utilize a 1031 versus simply putting a refi on it?
Yeah. Listen, you guys just had Brandon Turner on not too long ago, I think, right?
Correct. Yes.
So Brandon is the famous author of what? The Burr Method, where you buy it, rehab it, rent it, and then refinance it. Now,
Mhm.
what does that do? The refinance is tax free. That's just money that you can use for whatever. When I do that in a 1031 perspective, what we do is we tell people you want to have the perspective that you're not a flipper, but you still need to have access to your cash, right?
Mhm.
To grow your portfolio. So what are you going to do? Do that refinance, use that to go buy another property, and just keep that train rolling. So that's one path. And then the path that goes along with that, Jake, which is exactly what you're speaking to, is how do I then decide when it's time to sell that first property? Because I've got the cash out that I needed. It's now just performing, debt's paying down, tenants are paying the bills. It's moving like clockwork. When's the right time to sell it? And the answer to that could be a number of things. When you feel like your capital expense might be looming on the horizon, it's a good time to sell.
Mhm.
Always sell before the air conditioner breaks, right?
Mhm.
And that's when you can use the 1031 exchange to go find something that's maybe of newer construction. We don't have to worry about that. What if a region is starting to slow down? We're experiencing this with tons of California investors right now. California is famous for having huge appreciation run ups and then it stagnates. Doesn't necessarily boom and bust like down here in Florida, right,
Mhm.
Gino? But
Mhm.
it stagnates. So you ride the appreciation train up, but then you sell California in 1031 someplace like Ohio or Tennessee or wherever
Mhm.
where cash flow is better. Or maybe for your particular bent, you're wanting to move from residential into commercial, or you're looking for places where there is cones of government influx, where it's created these little mini economies that are booming. And the 1031 exchange is beautiful for that because you can change class of real estate, whatever you want, and you can change location of real estate, wherever you want, whenever you want. So there could be a number of reasons to move it anywhere.
I like that. Everyone, I want you all to write this down because this is important, what Dave said. Section 1031 is for investment property. Number one, you need to have a qualified intermediary. You need 45 days. Ooh, just remember that the 45 days to identify. Very important. 180 days to close. Those are all important statistics and metrics that you just need to remember. And then finally, pick up the phone and call Dave when you're ready to talk about it, because you need that qualified intermediary, because this is important. Dave, share a couple of horror stories with people, because I have one of my own from 25 years ago about
Yeah, have you ever
performing one.
whiffed and missed the 180 day and like hit it like day 185?
Well, Dave, let's get you more granular. You have investors out there that wanted to do it, then they did it wrong, and then they come to you and go, what a horror story I had with this other intermediary. Because I'm assuming not all qualified intermediaries are created equally, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, anything can happen, right? You miss a date, you're done, because there's not exactly like the IRS is going to give you mercy. That's not in the vocabulary. One of my, gosh, I almost used the word favorite. How sad is that? One of my favorite horror stories of all time was actually a client of ours who only put the one property on his 45-day list he was going to buy. And we usually try to tell people, it's like, maybe hedge the risk or try to get that sucker under contract so that it's safe during the 45-day period. He didn't, and it was a significant purchase. And it was after day 45, and he lost the bid. And he had no other properties to choose from. So literally, this guy had to go with his tail between his legs and offer a substantial check to the winner of the bid just for the right to buy the contract to purchase the property. That was a bad day.
Wow. Favorite horror story. How would you go out and select an intermediary like yourself? If I'm going out and trying to hire a 1031 company, what do you need to look for in a company?
Well, intermediaries are kind of interesting because they're not a highly regulated industry at all. So you can't look and say, well, this degree makes someone qualified. This license makes someone qualified. They just have to be inside the statute. But quite frankly, most QIs know so much more about 1031 than the best educated CPAs and tax analysts in America, because they are focusing 2 miles deep in a 2-foot wide creek. Whereas a great CPA is covering everything for you. So since 1031 is a federal statute, it's applied the same in every state. So the best thing you can do is go talk to other investors who have used them. Find someone who's got one that they've used multiple times. A title company can many times provide you with good personal recommendations. Now, they may just give you the name of the one that's associated with their title company. Don't accept that. Ask questions. But personal experience is always going to be best, because that's where it's demonstrated. Because the law is evolving every year. Just in 2018, right, with the new tax code change, all of a sudden we lost a significant part of 1031 exchange. And now you can no longer exchange personal property. So that's had impact on depreciation and all sorts of other things.
So Jake and Dave, picture this. It's 1994. I'm out of college. We're going out and we're buying a restaurant. My mom at the time has got a piece of property that she's selling for $300,000 for a sizable gain. We're going to roll the 1031 money into the restaurant, and we need that money to actually do the renovations. We have these hotshot lawyers, and this is 94, so maybe it's pre-96, but we have these hotshot lawyers. You know, it's the status roll, Jake. They just status roll you, and they say, I got a 1031, intermediary, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, intermediary blows up. My mom ends up having to pay taxes on that, which at the time was probably $60,000 or $70,000 of substantial money. And it's one of those lessons. Costs right there. It's one of the lessons that you learn. And we just sold this restaurant. We just sold it 2 months ago. So that money would have been sitting there, like Dave said, forever. And it's just amazing now. You look back at it, and it's something that you do. Don't get, I don't want to use the word hoodwink, but do your due diligence. Go out there and, now we didn't have Bigger Pockets back in the day. We didn't have all these other sites back in the day where you can go on and jump and do your due diligence. So right now you need to find communities that are actually utilizing 1031s, that are utilizing the intermediaries. And that was the biggest mistake we did. We actually performed another one back in 2007. worked like a charm because we actually learned from our mistakes. But I don't want anyone out there to make a big mistake like that, because that put us behind the 8 ball, because that was a lot of rehab costs, and that was truly a lot of money. And the funny thing is, I told my mom, let's sue the lawyers. They screwed the thing up. But, you sue a lawyer, what are you going to sue them for? I mean, they all protect themselves. So that's not the end game. You just have to live and learn and really do your due diligence and look somebody up like Dave. He's done probably, how many have you done? You've probably done hundreds of them.
Our company passed 200,000 a year ago.
200,000. So do you think he's done a
That's a
few?
lot of
So,
work.
wow. Yeah. And when did you guys start?
So I'm both old and tired.
So, when did you started back in 1996? That's when you started doing that?
Right. Yeah. And actually, it's kind of funny you mentioned, that was the time frame when you were there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we were first starting up, we would go have conferences or whatever, and people would ask us, what are you doing? And we would tell them who we were. And they said, well, what do you guys do? And I said, well, if we told you, we'd have to kill you. Nobody knew what a qualified intermediary was, because it was a brand new concept.
Mm-hmm. So Dave, what is the typical cost? I mean, it's hard to give a cost on one of these studies because you may be doing properties worth millions and millions of dollars. Or what is the typical cost for 1030?
Yeah, for the garden variety, it's kind of funny, but the average exchange price is less than $300,000. So many people think, oh, my property is not enough to make it worthwhile. But the average price is in the 200,000s. So if you are only sheltering $30,000 or $40,000, that's still a $2,000 or $3,000 tax hit to you. Now, although a lot of I've heard this before, it's not worth it. But if you can put $2,000 into your pocket, or you have to leave it on the street, what are you going to choose?
In the
So
pocket.
the average price of an exchange, if you're using a good national qualified intermediary, $750 to $1,000. So even if you're only saving $4,000, you're spending $750 to do that. I don't know. That seems like pretty good savings to me.
Jake, if it costs you money, if it makes you money,
I guess it costs you nothing.
I like that.
Before we get to the short answers, Dave, you'd mentioned Section 121. Can we jump into that?
Yeah, well, that was actually the linchpin to my life strategy, because we knew we needed to get from Colorado to water. And we knew that we wanted to move our real estate with us. And we knew that we could not, Jake, 1031 from real estate into a boat. Darn it. If I ever figured that out, you'll be the first person
Even
I
if it's
call.
on it's on a dock and it's sitting there.
Now the dock, maybe. We've done 1031 exchanges for docks.
Okay.
If you get a tax bill for it. But the boat itself, still personal property, my friend.
Own the real estate that the boat sits on. Put it on a lift. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure it out after.
There you go. I like your thinking. We'll get there. We'll get there. So Section 121 has been around forever and a day as well. And what it allows you to do is sell a piece of property that you live in and take, if you're single, the first $250,000 in profit. If you're married, it's the first $500,000 in profit, tax-free. And here's the key. Since 1987, you can now do this once every 2 years. So light clicks on for us, because why? In addition to having ADD, I love to do rehab projects, and I love to do them where I live, which I have no clue how I've managed to stay married for 32 years. But we're there. So what we would do is we would combine Section 1031 and Section 121. We did 1031 exchanges from Colorado into Connecticut. And then after using those properties for investment for a period, we moved into them, sold our property that we lived in Colorado, took the money tax-free. 2 years later, sold the property in Connecticut, took the money tax-free, and moved into another one of our investment properties. 2 years later, sold the property tax-free, moved to an investment property we had 1031 into.
Was there ever talk of divorce?
What's that?
I said, was there ever talk of divorce? I'm just wondering.
No, but she would
around. That's tough, man.
When she got too frustrated, she'd pick up a hammer. Actually, all I had to do, Jake, was promise to give her granite countertops in the boat, and we were okay.
Man.
But that's exactly what we did. So over the course of that 10 years, we managed to buy the boat with tax-free dollars from real estate investing.
Cool.
Now, think of that just as a by itself strategy. If all you're doing is buying your own house and every once in a while, actually, NAR, I think, has the statistics that the average person lives in their property about 5 years. So just in natural living over the course of your life, you're going to have 7 or 8 opportunities to sell and take that money tax-free. That's a career by itself.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So that's what we did.
Very cool. All right, guys, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
Are you looking for ways to improve your life?
Here at Jake and Gino, our mission is to empower students through financial education and the vehicle of multifamily investing.
Yes, Jake. We agree that a person with financial intelligence can change the world for the better.
We've created our proprietary 3-step framework, buy right, manage right, and finance right, that we teach to our community. This framework, along with education, our one-on-one mentorship, on-site boot camps, and the amazing community has propelled our students to massive success.
We've all been there. We've had so many students that have been able to shift their mindset, overcome limiting beliefs, and set a clear path to achieve their goals. Whether you're currently fixing and flipping, wholesaling, or buying single-family rentals, and you know that multifamily investing is the right vehicle for you, I encourage you to visit jakeandgino.com/apply to schedule your complimentary consultation with our team. And I want to let you know this isn't a high-pressure sales call. It's really just a discovery call to get to know each other better and see if we're a good fit for working together. And if for any reason we're not a good fit, our team has tons of resources we will share with you to help you along your journey.
If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels, go to jakeandgino.com/apply and schedule your call now. All right, we are back. What is your best habit for success? And how do you stay married moving that often?
Yeah, marry well, but that's actually not a habit. That was a one-time occurrence. So I guess we can't call it that. I have learned to make it a habit of pursuing my passion. I make deliberate choices every day, although sometimes works against you, right? Because working out doesn't exactly feel very good, but it's not my passion. But find the things that you want to do and pursue those single-heartedly.
So like real estate. So what does the rest of 2020 look like for your real estate investing?
We are working right now, finishing up a large land development that will hopefully be out of by the end of 2020, 200-home subdivision. Who knows with this? I mean, I don't know about what kind of tea leaves you guys are reading, but COVID's got me confused. Real estate itself is just fired back up without a hitch. But down here in Florida, you just kind of wonder, if you listen to all the news outlets, if there's going to be anybody alive in 2 or 3 months to live in real estate. So we're watching that very closely. I'm a huge believer in vacation real estate. You're up there, Jake, you're up there close to the Smokies. We're seeing tons of activity in the vacation rental business up there.
People want their bug out cabins.
That's exactly right. Hey, Gino, I'll bet that you use Jake's place for hurricanes, don't you?
It's really funny, Dave. Picture this one. 2017, I moved down here in June. What happens in September? A lady named Irma comes rolling up the coast. And what happens? Jake's like, come to Tennessee, bro. I pack up the 6 kids in the minivan. We drive up there. We just miss all the traffic, and it's amazing. It hit, but for St. Augustine, it wasn't that bad. It really normally curls out to the ocean, but it was a scary event, and it was something that's, the worst part about it, it's the unknown. You're just waiting. Should I leave? Should I not leave? Should I leave? Should I not leave? And it was actually an amazing thing for me to go because I had a great time. My kids love going up there. We're going to go see him next weekend, and it's just, for us, it was awesome, but it's the same kind of feeling as what you're saying.
And we bought a deal.
Yeah. Remember that word, hurricane. Just grab the insurance binder, head out.
I love that. Dave, I want to ask you one question about the 1031, and I think it's been really fueling multifamily for the last few years. Can you just speak to that real quick as far as people having these gains and then rolling these gains into another deal? And maybe that's one of the reasons why cap rates are compressing and you see a lot of demand because people have these big gains. Do you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely. And that's just part of the natural ebb and flow
Mm-hmm.
of a real estate market.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just geographical, it's also demographical.
Mm-hmm.
So for that sector, multifamily's been hot for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right, cap rates are being compressed. So the 1031 investor, because they've got the long game in mind, says, I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and stay in this as long as I can keep my margins safe
Mm-hmm.
for the long haul. I had tons of real estate investors in 2008 that didn't lose a penny because they never had to sell
Mm-hmm.
a property.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either go that route or you can 1031 into something else where there may be more lift available.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm kind of bullish on single family again because I think there's another appreciation train coming.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can keep my
Appreciation.
margins safe and buy for appreciation, why not?
Mm-hmm. Love
So is that what you're looking at for the rest of you? You're going to buy some single families?
And more specifically, single families in vacation areas.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll short-term rental them.
Cool. Any books that you read recently that you'd like to recommend?
I got three favorite books. The first one, it may sound cliche, but the Bible, especially the Proverbs, is the best business primer in the world. It talks about being crafty. It talks about negotiation, and it teaches you how to do it all ethically. It's an amazing. As far as business in general books, there's a guy by the name of Richard Marbury, and I read these maybe twice a year, who wrote a couple books. And the reason why I love them, guys, is because they're written at an 8th grade level. So I can understand them. They're called Whatever Happened to Penny Candy. And the second one is The Clipper Ship Strategy. Whatever Happened to Penny Candy is, I think, the best understandable primer on the effects of money velocity and inflation that's ever been written. That's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
And we are entering into a period where there is a lot of money velocity and there's a lot of money being printed, and people need to understand what the impacts are when money enters the economy. So and I'm due to read that again. His other book is called The Clipper Ship Strategy. And I think it's exactly what you guys are using every day, because it is how to identify many economies where the government is artificially creating activity through what are called cones of investment. So is the military investing heavily, is the government investing heavily into military bases in certain areas? Look around those areas. Is the government investing heavily in subsidized housing? Look in those areas. All those kinds of things. People don't understand this, but the Clipper ships only ran for about 18 months. But they were such a significant and lucrative part of our history that they've made it into lore. And it was those people who found the cones of where the opportunity was that really benefited. Awesome books. Read them. You'll get through them in a day, and you'll probably understand them even better than I do.
Dave, can you remind me just what that first one was about, the money velocity? What was that book called?
Whatever Happened to Penny Candy.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you
to piggyback off that, then you said the word appreciation earlier. Are we seeing appreciation or inflation right now?
If you said that question in a different venue, you'd be like a PhD in economics. That's an awesome question. To tell you the truth, I really don't know.
Why is the venue? This is the Jake and Gino show, baby. This is the venue. Come on, man.
It is the venue. I was thinking, Ivy League kind of stuff.
No, we're the farthest thing from that,
I guess.
Okay.
I think to look at that, you would have to go. We could be seeing the inflation at its very early stages. Absolutely. I think you'd have to go back and take a look at wage escalation as well. But guess what happened? We just had a $2 trillion influx of government subsidized wages.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you absolutely could be. One of the lessons I always learned way early on is, if you are in a stagnant economy, debt's your enemy. But when inflation is running wild, borrow like a drunken sailor, get it fixed for 30 years, and enjoy the ride.
Mm-hmm. I like that because a dollar today is a lot cheaper than a dollar 10 years from now. A dollar 10 years from now is going to be worth a lot less. You'll be paying dollars 10 years from now that are worth a lot more today. So I totally agree with that premise.
What is the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Best way to get hold of us, go to our website, the1031investor.com. I know you guys put all your stuff up on YouTube. I've got a YouTube series as well. I think it's like 30 videos that you can access through that. Articles, primers, calculators. The key to doing a 1031 exchange well is to be prepared and think strategically. It's not just, I'm going to sell a property, let's do a 1031. It's a thoughtful process, and if you use it that way, you'll benefit much better. So the 1031investor.com, come on over.
G-Dad, what say you?
Stan Januski, I have a few final thoughts on this because it's really important. I want everyone to write this one down because this is the theme of the show. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. And Dave kept enough to buy himself a boat.
Woo,
Dave can do it. Y'all can do it out there. Really important. Let that resonate because that's one of the most important things because we have high net worth earners. We just had a CPA on our master class yesterday talking about the tax code. It's written for the informed and the uninformed. Which one are you? You have the option to become informed. That's why you're listening to this show. Really important. Number 2, Jake, done is better than perfect, right? Let's just rip it out there. You commit and then you figure it out. That's our mantra. Number 3, if it makes you money, it costs you nothing. So that little fee that you're paying Dave to be able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's going to pay you back and think it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your investment strategy. And I think ultimately Dave talks about it. It's the long game. Stop playing the short game. Stop playing the shiny object syndrome. I had to smack Jake in the head metaphorically because he wants to flip a home. That's not our down the road.
You wanted to do it more than I did. Come on, dude.
I did. But you know what? We talked about it and we said to ourselves, that's not our thing. The shiny object syndrome is real for everybody out there. Find the niche and crush it and then utilize this 1031 to contribute and go towards that long game. Whatever you're doing, focus on the long game and you will get paid handsomely.
Ultimately, folks, the choice is yours. Dave, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, it was great being here. Thanks, guys.